without them coming back the next turn like a normal Wrath of God normally does. And it doesn't create any bridge tokens.
Okay, so, all right, well, turn 1 we have Damon Whitby, a City of Brass into Putrid Imp, which typically is going to be, provided he has a Dredger, is going to set up for a very powerful turn 2.
Yeah.
He's got Stinkweed Imp into the yard. So, this is kind of the Dredge plan going off here. About how many turns does Shawn have before things get really, how many turns does he have to react here?
Charitably, 2, and he's probably dead on like the 3rd or the 4th. Putrid Imp is especially good because it doesn't open him up to Spell Pierce as a way to shut him down for an entire turn. If you open on something like Careful Study, then you can dredge your cards, miss on dredgers, and then you just sit around and wait to get to 8 cards in hand, and then you get to start playing Magic again.
Right.
So being able to always, or not playing Magic, as it were.
Right.
So being able to consistently put your dredger back in the yard is a big deal, and can sometimes push the blue-white player to use a Swords to Plowshares that they would otherwise want to use on something like an Icarid on your Putrid Imp.
Right. So here Damon has the Cabal Therapy on turn 2. So with he managed to dredge into a Narcomoeba. Obviously he didn't hit another dredger. He doesn't really need it because it's Putrid Imp.
Right. So against Flooded Strand Blind, do you just name Brainstorm?
Well, I mean, the first one probably has to name Brainstorm because then you get the Brainstorm out of his hand. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And then if he casts Brainstorm, what do you name? Because like there's a great game
of
like...
Therapy. Now he's Brainstormed.
Right.
So presumably, what's the card he's trying to hide here?
Terminus.
Okay, so he's trying to hide a Terminus on top this turn.
Right, and then just flip it over on his next turn.
So I think that's still named Brainstorm, because what I wouldn't want to have happen is him readjust where the Terminus is. If the Terminus is getting flipped over next turn, maybe I'm fine with that. I just won't play creatures into it. Yeah. Let him draw the Terminus and then go from there.
Well, no. Like if he has the Terminus and stacks it on top, then Shawn's Terminusing in his turn 2 upkeep, in which case you would probably name Plow, correct?
Right.
Because you want to follow up with another Putrid Imp, and you don't want your Putrid Imp to eat a Swords to Plowshares so you can get your engine back up and running.
Makes sense. So we see a Terminus, Sensei's Divining Top, Counterspell, and 3 lands in Shawn French's hand. So the fact that he's kept a top here, which will basically once he I almost want to say, I'm curious if he's buried another Terminus now, so he can untap and top.
Super guarantee that there's another Terminus in the top 2 cards of his library if he has one in his hand.
Right. So the Terminus in his hand, not relevant right now. Damon Whitby. So the play then, I think, because Counterspell is not particularly good here, is does he want to sack that and get the Divining Top?
Yeah,
and I think he does, because otherwise Shawn French gets to have this instant speed Terminus, which is going to be really hard to combo through, and that's exactly what Whitby does. So Shawn really only with 1 interactive card now, which is going to be Counterspell. Terminus can become interactive if he Brainstorms, but at 6 mana, it's not really a card. I don't think.
Does he have Imp Looting? Is that his hand? That's a pretty good hand.
We're Whitby right now. I know he has. I think he has 2 imps right now.
Okay.
So yeah, the Miracle Terminus, as predicted, was on top of French's deck.
The classy Venice Euro Island.
Yeah. When you said Imp Looting, you mean Stinkweed or Putrid?
Putrid.
Yeah.
Because he discarded a bunch of cards before he attacked, because when you see a Terminus in their hand, you know another one's on top, so you get in for Threshold. A Thresholded Imp deals another damage.
I see. Yep.
So he was maximizing that and pitching all of his Dredgers because he was going to have to eventually. Because it's not, he could choose not to cast it. Like if he hit Plow on top, then...
So Damon's still in 1 land. He's putting pretty much an endless supply of Dredgers into the graveyard right now, which almost, at this point, I don't think, say Shawn gets to finally Swords as Putrid Imp, I'm not positive how relevant that is anymore now that Damon has 2 Imps and a Grave Troll in the yard.
So he's going to flash it back, name Counterspell.
Right.
And then his last card has to be a draw effect.
So for those of us unfamiliar with Dredge, looking at Damon's list, so what is he... So, okay, obviously he now has the ability to mill his whole deck very quickly. What's he winning with? What's he building up to?
He's building up to a Dread Return, probably on a Golgari Grave Troll. Yeah, that's the comic book art Faithless Looting.
Right.
So you generally just generate a bunch of advantage and end up with a few Narcomoebas in play. Their hand is completely wrecked by Cabal Therapies, which is what we saw as early as turn 2. Mm-hmm. You want to deny them the capacity to draw on your turn, because when you go to attack with your huge Dread Returned Grave Troll and Zombie Horde, you want to actually connect for game.
So Faithless Looting being used as a 1-mana mill 12 spell, essentially, here.
Right.
On an empty hand.
It's Careful Study with Flashback in red.
Right.
Which is phenomenally good. Because it interacts well with Lion's Eye Diamond.
You'd say red is easier than blue, or it's just
the
same?
They're the same, but the Flashback is what really makes the card pop in this format. Right. Lion's Eye Diamond very conveniently adds 3 mana of any one color. And so you can just cast it, activate Lion's Eye Diamond in response to discard your hand, including at least one Dredger. You dredge your cards, you discard them to Faithless Looting's second clause, discard 2 cards, and then you flash it back, dredging up to another 12 cards.
So at this point, Damon, about half his deck's in the graveyard. He's hit 2 Narcomoebas and an Ichorid. On Shawn French's board side, he has left in his hand a Terminus and a Batterskull, I want to say. They weren't taken.
And is that a Plains?
Yeah, I think he has another. It appears he has another land. But so is this the kind of thing, if Shawn can just play fairly and curve those into each other, what kind of chances does he have of stopping the game plan? Right here, 4/4 lifelink.
We're about to see.
Yeah.
What kind of packets of damage can Damon deal?
So, yeah, the biggest thing is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that Damon hasn't hit a bridge from below yet.
Right, that's a huge deal.
So he may, and I don't believe he has the Dread Return yet either. No, he does have a Dread Return. It's all the way up at the top 4th from the left. But what he hopes to do is by the time he Dread Returns, he's hoping that he will, if he has 2, maybe something like 2 bridges in the graveyard, that he'll be able to just make this really big army.
Yeah, so there's one bridge. The other reason that bridge is good is that he can just return Ichorid and gain value off of exiling his Putrid Imps and redundant Stinkweed Imps when he starts dredging his Grave Trolls for 6.
And then when the Ichorids die on end step,
he gets a zombie for free.
Yeah.
So here I think, Ichorid coming back also generates incremental value, giving him a free flashback with Cabal Therapy. He gets to take that Terminus, which is otherwise going to, if Shawn draws a land, bottom the 2 Narcomoebas without giving him any zombie tokens.
Right. Unfortunately, it also will bottom the Germ token, which means the bridges will not be removed from the graveyard.
Right.
Which is, I think, maybe unfortunate, because then there will still be Ichorids.
Right. You get to attack first, so you lifelink yourself up to 13, giving yourself 4 turns... At least 4 turns against an Ichorid.
Sure. So
where you're actually doing work.
Right. So he has let's see, he has I believe it's just 1 Ichorid in the yard. So yeah, there's not.
Yeah.
For as many cards into his deck, I almost feel like Damon is rather light on actual game right now.
He's running pretty far below average in terms of hitting the types of cards that actually win him the game. But he ran very far above average in terms of number of Cabal Therapies drawn early in the game, which let him get into this position without losing to things like Divining Top into a bunch of good spells.
So you've seen in Decision Time, Dread Return is currently being flashed back. And remember, Dread Return is a 1-of, so this is the only time we'll see it flashed back off Ichorid 2 Narcomoebas, targeting what I think has to be Golgari Grave Troll.
Yeah, it has to be Golgari Grave Troll. Some fancy zombie tokens.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Grave Troll counts itself when it is Dread Returned. It's a weird sort of interaction, but it's still in the graveyard when it says, how many counters should I put on this Grave Troll?
And because it's only can be in 2 places. It's the battlefield and the Grave Troll.
And if it's on the battlefield,
correct. So if it's not on the battlefield, it's in the graveyard, because those are the only 2 places it can be.
And since it's in the graveyard, it counts itself.
Yeah, it's interestingly enough that only happens when it's Dread Returned. If it were cast, there's a 3rd place it can be, which is on the stack. But since it's not on the stack, the Dread Return's on the stack, it actually, it does count itself.
Unintuitive, but get every little bit of value if you plan on playing Dredge.
Absolutely. So
Is he flashing Therapy here off of...
I have to think that's coming. right now, what we had is we had I believe a chump block by
gotcha.
a block by the Grave Troll on the Batter Skull Germ token, and that was done by French so that he could exile the bridge from below.
Right.
Unless it seems like French is pretty far behind. I don't really know how he realistically gets this game.
I mean, he has to. He needed to draw a land for his terminus.
Right.
Damon played somewhat aggressively, not flashing back that Cabal Therapy that's in the that's right below those Narcomoebas. Right. To get the terminus out of his hand because he knew it was there. He saw it off of the earlier Cabal Therapy.
Still wants to do that, I imagine.
Yeah, you for sure want to do it because if you're not lethaling him here, then
you lose your Icarid, you lose your Grave Troll. To be fair, without any pressure, Damon may just be able to buy milling 6 every turn, not care, and like rebuild and just do it again. But we see a sword, Snapcaster Swords on the Golgari Grave Troll. So Damon,
I actually would have snap plowed the Icarid because that's like how he stays in this game.
Post terminus.
Right. And then chump the Grave Troll to get the 2 new bridges out.
So Shawn has to assume terminus is step 1 to me winning this game.
Yeah, you have to peel land here. I don't think that playing to win involves doing anything other than making sure that after you cast your terminus, which is the only way that you're winning this game, that he can't Icarid plus have bridges.
Right. So both bridges removed there because of the Snapcaster trade, which I do like about that chump, the block there. The Snapcaster, a very good card because of the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
But him still having an Icarid to rebuy is a problem because he's at 6.
Right. So we have Shawn. So Shawn French down to 6 cards. His hand is Terminus and a Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce not really a card here anymore. Damon's not really casting anything. I don't even know if he's casting much anymore.
Right. He could cast that Cabal Therapy, in which case Spell Pierce gets live.
Of note, Damon has exiled 3 of his bridges and his Dread return. So if Shawn can more or less control this game from here, which is obviously a tall order, Damon's, I think, out of most of his broken ways.
And 3 Narcomoebas are in the graveyard, so he only has 1 more Narcomoeba to hit.
Right.
He has 2 more Icarids to hit, unless he removed 1 to an earlier activation.
Is there if he can get another land, he can Golgari Thug things maybe back on top?
Yeah.
Not really typically a cast card in the deck, but maybe some. I feel like it's one of its backup plans.
Right. You thug your Narcomoebas to the top of your deck.
So he's going to sack to Therapy, and I think he's going to Therapy away that Terminus. It's going to be Spell Pierced.
Right.
No way to pay for the Spell Pierce.
Right. That's why I liked Therapying him when we had our opening, when he was tapped out for the Batter Skull.
Right. And the draw was Force of Will by Shawn French. Not a land, not a Terminus.
It ended up not mattering, but I think that Damon might have played that game a little passively.
He gave him there was certainly a window in which
Shawn had an opportunity to Terminus for a tremendous amount of value that didn't end up working out, but I still would have liked to have seen a different line.
So, unsurprisingly, Dredge player winning game 1.
Huge shock.
All right. So, now the question is, first of all, what is Shawn going to do game 2? And then I guess the follow-up is, how is this going to change Damon's plan?
Yeah. So, Shawn is going to bring in a variety of permanent-based removal. So, he has, if he wants it, here are the cards that can make an impact. Detention Sphere for zombie tokens, Relic of Progenitus for obvious reasons, Spell Pierce for, all of his draw spell effects, because he's very land light, and
Shawn is on the play this game too.
Right, and he's on the play, so he gets to spike like a turn 1 Faithless Looting or Careful Study or Breakthrough. We'll get to why that might not matter as much in just a sec.
Sure.
He has a Path to Exile if he wants to grind out the long game with Narcomoebas and Icarids and snap casting those. He has another Terminus, which is definitely going to come in. I think it's his best card in the matchup, outside of Rest in Peace, which is a 2-mana trump card to Damon's game plan. Umezawa's Jite can control the board once he's reset it once. And Red Elemental Blast can hit Careful Study, and I think that's it.
Right, so the reason we say anything that could have impact, I think you're being pretty literal when you say could have impact, because there's actually a fair number of cards in his deck that just don't do anything.
Right.
What I'd be looking at, I don't like. I would say,
Jace is a pretty optimistic thing to keep in your deck.
Batterskull seems pretty bad.
No.
Maybe-
So Batterskull is a game plan. So what happens with
it's how you
Batterskull?
win.
Yeah, but, well, no. It's also how
Alright.
you control the game, because you can get it down and then you can return it, and the germ dies when you pick Batterskull up, and it removes their bridges.
So it's bridge. Okay, so that's for bridge.
So
control.
it controls their bridges, and then Batterskull is also the perfect size to block Icarid indefinitely, and it gains you back the life that you lost in the early game.
So, all right. So the Batterskull's still in. That's still the Batterskull, and then therefore the Stone Forges.
Right. Vendilion Click probably not, because it gives them a draw trigger.
Oh well, yeah. Which
Like, you click away something in their hand that they're never going to use, and then they get to dredge instead of draw.
that's right.
It's a poor proposition. Counterbalance is basically never going to do anything.
right.
I wouldn't keep Counterspell in.
And then he does have originally his miracle. He has the one Entreat the Angels. It seems like he's more, Damon to me seems fast enough that instead of trying to win the game legitimately, Shawn's trying to basically control the game to a point where Damon cannot win. He's
Yeah.
almost trying to prison Damon out of the game. So like something that just ends the game like that seems unnecessary in the matchup.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. You can win with fairly incidentally. You need to dedicate a huge proportion of your deck to making sure that you get to turn 5 or 6, where you
Right.
could theoretically cast Entreat for value. And having it in your opener or like as one of your first few draw steps is a fairly poor thing. I'd rather have something like Detention Sphere that I could cast on turn 3 that could clear away a few zombies.
So, okay, so we've already talked about how, obviously this deck's game 2 post-board games against Dredge are much better.
Right.
So,
How does Dredge-
Damon Whitby can't really play many things that require mana, or much more than 1 mana.
Right.
Question, so he has Firestorms, they're not for this matchup. He has 4 Nature's Claims and a Chain of Vapor, which seem to be his
Yes.
go-to cards.
Those are going to balance Shawn's permanent-based removal. He's going to then try to Cabal Therapy away a lot of counter magic, and then use a big spell to try and resolve something critical.
I think both players going to 6 here.
Yeah.
It appears.
Yeah, both of them are shuffling up after having looked at opening hands. So Dredge is probably the deck in the entire format with which I would expect to mulligan the most.
Right.
There are 4-card hands that are worth hundreds of times more value than a lot of its 7-card hands.
Well, especially as we saw before, Dredge runs out of cards in his hand pretty quickly, and it only needs an interaction of about 3 cards to,
Right. It needs a land, a way to discard its treasure, and a dredger.
Yeah, land, Putrid Imp, Grave Troll.
Yeah, is a phenomenal 3-card hand that is way better than like land, careful study, bridge from below, dread return, Putrid Imp, Cabal Therapy, right? Like if you don't have a dredger, there's no reason to keep your hand. You should not do it.
And Shawn French probably feels similar about hate cards. So Shawn French on to 5 didn't really find a hate card.
But it's okay because, again, if he resolves Rest in Peace on turn 2, then he asks Damon to have Nature's Claim in order to continue playing this game.
So what non-dredger hands can Damon Whitby beat?
On 5?
His opponent's already going to 5. So say Damon has a hand, he knows his opponent's going to 5, he has a hand with maybe
2 lands and 4.
I'll give you one. Let me give you
flying creatures?
2 lands. But he has like 2 lands, Putrid Imp, Cabal Therapy, maybe a blank and a Faithless Looting. So the therapy can name Rest in Peace. Like, is this keepable now that he knows his opponent's going to 5?
I don't think so. I think you still need to actually play Magic, because the easiest way to lose playing Dredge is
Stop.
is to turn into a reactive deck.
So on 5, Shawn's leading off on just a island. He has a Brainstorm. He has a pair of Stoneforge Mystic, a pair of Terminuses. He has no other lands.
Right. He has no white mana. And
So
he has to be disciplined in not firing off this Brainstorm until he has a way to cast his Terminuses from the top of his deck.
Right. So second one, Tarnished Citadel from Whitby. I think French is asking what it does.
It bolts you if it makes colored mana, but it also taps for colorless at no cost.
All right, so Golgari Thug from Whitby.
So he's
also
going.
a foreign card.
Yeah.
It's basically a 1/1 with Dredge 4.
Right, but when it dies, you must put a creature from your graveyard on top of your deck.
That is not Golgari Thug.
No, it
can be
Golgari. You can lock someone out
with
with their own Thug.
Thug has to do it to himself if it's the only guy, right?
Correct. There's no you may on that card. You can definitely Dark Blast lock someone if they want to keep playing their Thug into your Dark Blast.
Sure. So Shawn French, and I think what you're saying with that, the discipline play is being pre-disciplined. He's drawn a second Brainstorm, which may, I think, give him the flexibility to not do that.
Yeah.
Interesting move by Damon Whitby. So
I mean, if he's going to cast Brainstorm, he has to do it on his own turn when he can find a second land.
Yeah. So Damon cast Putrid. I think French, well, that's Counterspell, not second Brainstorm, wisely Force of Wills the Putrid.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to let him use his graveyard. Oh, jeez.
So Stoneforge Mystic, excellent draw off the Tundra. Excellent draw for Shawn French. He has some game now.
Yeah.
Finding Batterskull.
Batterskull, the only piece of main deck equipment here, really a sparing Stoneforge Mystic suite that he's using sort of as a Kitchen Finks, a 4-mana over 2 turns Kitchen Finks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is what this deck needs on some level.
Yeah, there's no Jite in the main. Typically, when you see 2 pieces of equipment, you see Jite as well.
Right, but he has 3 Mystics, 1 Batterskull, that's it, and he has the Jite in the sideboard.
So interestingly enough, and as you saw Damon Whitby swinging the 1/1 into the Stoneforge Mystic, he wants to put Putrid Imp back on top of his deck.
Right.
Even when Shawn gets the Batterskull in play, Shawn's going to not completely be able to attack with the Germ Token for fear of, if he attacks with the Germ Token, Damon will combo him. So, and once again...
Well, no, the Germ Token has Vigilance.
No, I know, but the Thug will block.
Sure.
So it's almost like Shawn might make a defensive Batterskull to prevent it from attacking, but not block, hit back, and then just like wait until he maybe draws a Rest in Peace.
Yeah, so they actually just like have the good old Mexican standoff of, if you attack, I block, and if you attack, I won't block, and then I'll just attack you back for 4 times as much and gain 4 life.
Right. So is what it seems to. I mean, the problem I think with this is that Damon doesn't have the. He can draw another Putrid Imp. There's other pretty sweet cards for him.
He just doesn't have a way to get his Dredgers into his graveyard.
Right. Yet, but I mean, his deck, what is it? So his draws 3 other Putrid Imps, 4 Faithless Lootings, 3 Careful Studies.
He could Cabal Therapy himself. He's choosing not to. He looks like he's therapying Shawn. Shawn now has to decide which resource he values.
To me, that seems correct because the Thug is already as good as in the yard because of the Cabal Therapy.
Right.
He already has the Dredger in the yard. Now he wants to rip
he gets
up
to
the
free
hand.
roll the flashback.
Especially because he has 2 Terminuses. He really is going to have. Yeah, he wants to get the Batterskull in play. The double Terminus is scary. He doesn't know if Damon is going to snap name Terminus. He's not going to name Rest in Peace because there's no way Rest in Peace is in his hand.
Right.
It looks like Shawn is going to Brainstorm before the fact.
Right.
The interesting thing is, where do you leave the Terminus? This turn isn't the turn where Putrid Imp's going to... I mean, is Terminus even that good on this board?
No, it's not. I think you put 1/2 down and you leave the other in your hand. Especially, he drew another Brainstorm. Ooh. Yeah, I don't know how I'd play this. I don't see his hand perfectly.
Yeah, I know it's Brainstorm, Terminus.
Yeah, he put Terminus Brainstorm, which is my instinct. Right? Yeah. He's not casting Terminus next turn.
He wants to be able to dig farther.
To have access to it the turn after, and he doesn't want to get his Brainstorm therapied.
Right, hiding the Brainstorm probably the most important thing. Remember, he is trying to find Rest in Peace.
Right. And just like continuing to have velocity is a very important thing when you're playing a blue deck in Legacy.
Right.
Like not being able to see multiple cards a turn is not where you want to be in this format.
I feel like this is especially true because he knows that Damon's deck has kind of been sputtering right now, but it just hit the gas this turn. And like the following turns are going to be good for Damon very quickly.
Right.
Divining Top drawn. I'm interested that he didn't actually keep Divining Top on top, put Divining Top Brainstorm. Yeah,
he named Rest in Peace.
Which to me is funny because it would be in play where it is in his hand.
Correct.
And if he draw enough Brainstorm, it would be the top card of his deck. It wouldn't be in his hand.
The only logical way that you could do that is if you put Shawn on exactly the sort of man who puts the poison in his own cup.
Sure, but so there are people who do that, but
He says, I'm going to keep my best card in my hand and hope that you name second best.
But there's a flashback on the therapy. He gets a duel.
Yeah.
There's no way,
There's no reason to name Rest in Peace up front.
Yeah.
If he has it, then he'll still have it, in which case...
And it's very unlikely that he has
and
it.
if you get 2 bites at the apple, then why would you name something that you can only trick someone with once?
Yeah. Okay, well, there's the flashback here. We'll see what he's naming. And fortunately, I find it even more interesting.
He therapies himself.
I find it even more interesting because Damon Whitby had the Nature's Claim in hand for naming Rest in Peace. It wasn't even...
Oh, no. So he wanted to kill the Batterskull. He wanted to make sure that he was going to get to play Magic, and he's going to start dredging Thug.
Right.
Or Stinkweed Imp is the case. Oh, he's casting Breakthrough?
Breakthrough for 0 right now.
Oh, then, yeah, that's actually a fairly reasonable line. He could have also named Relic to a similar effect.
Okay.
Because, yeah, this is just... We just misjudged the turn that he was going to try and get him dead.
So he's trying to do it on the same turn.
Yeah, or at least set up his graveyard and destroy his hand a little more.
Right. So we
have what looks to be 2 bridges so far, a Narcomoeba trigger on the stack. You don't resolve your Narcomoeba triggers until after everything happens. There's the Chain of Vapor that we thought was going to be there.
So in case you're wondering how all this started, Breakthrough, because his are foreign, is draw 4 cards, then choose X from your hand and discard the rest. You typically do it for 0, meaning draw 4, discard your hand for 1 blue.
Right.
Probably your
hand's not exactly the ideal zone for your key cards.
Right. I mean, it's probably one of the best looting effects Dredge has.
Yeah. But he didn't hit enough Narcomoebas or Cabal Therapies to make 3 creatures to Dread Return that to Terastodon.
Right. So this gives Shawn a chance to find the Rest in Peace and cast it because he didn't.
Well, no. So he can actually just pass. No, don't cast the Brainstorm.
Okay.
So he can cast Brainstorm on his opponent's turn and flip Terminus off of it.
And we are aware that Terminus is the top card right now.
Yeah. He has 1 in his hand. The other one's definitely on top of his deck. He could also flip top.
Yep. So there's plenty of ways. Remember, there is a Terminus on top of French's deck. Carefully planned.
Right. So he could flip top, but I like casting Brainstorm here because then you get to put your other Terminus back and float it with top.
Yeah. People are finding it's amusing that the Dredge player already has 3 lands in play. So Faithless Looting can actually just be cast as a flashback. Typically not how it works with Dredge.
He boarded in the Undiscovered Paradise for, exactly... He boarded in an additional Undiscovered Paradise, I should say, for this sort of long game, where he wants to be able to hard flashback Faithless Looting.
So the idea to play 3 lands is so you can actually flashback the Faithless Looting.
Right, and so that you can reliably cast your interactive spells like Firestorm, like Chain of Vapor, like Nature's Claim.
And so it's not to cast Stinkweed Imps? Or
if it comes to it, that's tangential. Sure. It comes up.
All right, so he's going to use the top to Terminus away just Icarid Narcomoeba.
Yeah.
Which I guess he's using the top instead of the Brainstorm, so he can take the Terminus in his hand and put it back on top of his deck for a second Terminus.
Yeah.
My guess is the reason why he does that. The scary part is that he can't do all that on 1 turn. He'd have to, Brainstorm this turn, get the Terminus in his top 3 cards, and then go from there.
Yeah. He can't decide, actually, I need that Terminus on top of my library
right now.
Yeah, and miracle it, because if you Brainstorm on your opponent's turn, it's not a miracle when you reveal it.
Right. So top cast that. So that play, I think, seemed like a little aggressive of a Terminus.
Yeah. Well, and then
because now this is going to happen.
Well, right, and the non-Brainstorm on his own turn, I think, was a little unwise.
So because of that, it looks like Damon Whitby has the green light to go nuts this turn.
Yeah.
Casting Stinkweed. Okay, so I saw casting Stinkweed Imp from his hand.
Yeah, to get 3rd creature.
For Dread Return. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets a bunch of bridge triggers.
And I think Shawn realizing...
Terastodon your white sources.
He has Snapcaster Mage, Brainstorm, Terminus. None of this actually is particularly... Yeah.
This is not going to turn out well for Shawn.
Yeah, I think the main phase play had to be Brainstorm on your own turn.
Yeah.
He sees
Draws three
lands,
lands.
one of which is Academy Ruins, one of which is a fetch land, which he probably wouldn't have minded on his own turn either.
Yeah.
So that's a green light. There's not going to be any plays from Shawn French.
Well, what's going to happen is he's going to get his white sources Terrastodon.
And just the one bridge from below in the yard. Yep.
Oh, yep. All the lands.
He's going to top again. Response digs one deeper. He's found some sort of white card there. His opponent courteously ready with 3 tokens.
So what Shawn can do here is he has Terminus second from the top, play a fetch land. Next turn when he, or on either Damon's turn or his own, he reveals Terminus to the Miracle trigger.
There's this window where Terminus is in your hand.
And revealed.
And then you can Miracle it. So you can put it in your hand, reveal it, and then crack your fetch land for the white source to cast it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I don't know if Shawn...
Yeah, you can't
I hope he
fetch
doesn't
first.
know this. If you fetch first, the Terminus is gone.
Yeah, you need to activate top, reveal it.
I think the last card in hand is Jace the Mind Sculptor.
No,
or Snapcaster.
It's got to be Snapcaster.
All right. It's hard, yeah. Well, on the other hand, us saying, so we're on Demon's turn, that since it's on top, it actually doesn't even have to be next turn. It can be tap, top, Miracle it.
Right.
So remember, Damon Whitby has boarded in his second Dread return as well.
Yeah, okay, so you have to draw step Terminus here. Yep, sequence here plays correctly.
All right. And Shawn very aware of how this works. It does mean that his top, unfortunately, is going to get shuffled away. But
he's going to get to Terminus away a solid 34 points of power.
Right.
Which is like, an okay deal. Narcomoeba goes on the bottom as well. Presumably above the Icarids. Yeah.
Yeah, so people made we have a comment about Whitby reorganizing his graveyard. Technically, what is the set is... it's something in Weatherlight block.
He has Ashen Ghoul.
Yeah, he does have an Ashen Ghoul in his board.
There are a number of other,
too.
like Death Spark cares about graveyard order. He's not reorganizing his graveyard, though. The top row is the bottom. Right, so as you look at the screen, the row slightly covered up by the heads-up display is the bottom of his graveyard. So the bottom card of his graveyard is Nature's Claim, the Asian one.
I think he has reordered his cards a couple times.
Really?
I want to say he has done it once, but that's... Yeah. So
you get to put your dredged cards in your graveyard in any order you want.
Right.
Because they go there at the same time.
So Cabal Therapy names something. Doesn't really matter. It's just lands for Shawn French. And 4 zombies in play. Looks like a pretty dicey situation for French.
And this is why you need to be able to Terminus and then have the follow-up to get their bridges out of there.
Okay, so all right, another draw from Shawn French. It's another third land, so not much game that he can do here. He's going to take 8, so he's on a 3-turn clock. So another Dredge from Damon Whitby. Does Shawn even get another turn? Looks like it. 8 damage, Shawn goes to 11. And so you see 2 Dread returns now in the yard. Because Shawn doesn't have any creatures, he can't really get rid of them, and it gives Damon the power to reload with brutal efficiency. Yeah.
So Shawn down to no spells in hand. 3 of his lands got blown up. He had to Terminus away his bonus elephants. And now he is literally living off the top of his deck. Facing down he needs a literal miracle.
And doesn't get it. Stoneforge Mystic. Yeah. So Damon Whitby winning 2 games to 0, round 7.
After getting 34 points of power Terminus.
Right. I think the big thing is Shawn wasn't